Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today is a super grey day, so I thought it was like the perfect opportunity to do a little sit down video. Again, I'm back. Hi, and get cozy and just answer some of your questions. As you know, or may not know if you haven't watched my last video, I have now graduated, which is insane and just so exciting. But with that comes a lot of questions, because obviously no one's graduated in this kind of situation before. So a lot of you have been asking questions, which I have got written down on my phone. I kind of just went through and picked out the ones which weren't too similar to the last video I did, which was also questions. This video is actually going to be more about what it was like to complete my final year whilst in isolation, what it was like being on lockdown and not in kind of a uni environment whilst having to do my final assignments and submit all of those and getting through the information that I have graduated whilst being like by myself in isolation on lockdown. So I thought I'd just chat about it with you, although I do want to keep this like super upbeat and like light-hearted. I know there's a lot of like negative content out there and I just don't really want to bring that to the table. So this is going to be a really fun upbeat little Q&A that I have for you, and I'm really excited to get started. So the first question was your course heavily affected? And I thought this was a great question just to start on, to give you kind of some like context, I guess, about my degree and where I was at when all of this happened. So if you didn't know, I graduated on April 20th, which was actually postponed. I was supposed to graduate on April 3rd, which meant that by April 3rd the majority of my essays had already been submitted. I think before that my final essay was due on like the 27th of March. So all around, I kind of had 3 or 4 around that time, but that was only a couple of weeks into isolation. We'd obviously already been set the assignments, so it wasn't too difficult being like I didn't have a lot of online studying. I kind of knew what was expected of me already. I just had to kind of move that from a uni setting, I guess, to at home, which luckily wasn't too tricky to do. But yeah, a lot of my work was already done, which I feel so lucky for, because it just meant it was a little bit easier to make that transition, I guess, whereas I feel like if I had been submitted a new assignment whilst in isolation, it would have been hard not to be able to have that one-on-one contact and kind of ask questions back and forth, and I have to do that via the internet. So I guess in that sense my university course wasn't too negatively affected or badly affected or heavily affected by it. It definitely was affected. I mean, everyone has been, but it could have been a lot worse, and I know that, so I was very lucky. But yeah, it was still so tricky for some people, still kind of a weird thing to have to wrap your mind around and get used to, but it could have been worse for sure. So the next question was, how have you been coping studying from home? And I want to say okay. I was kind of used to the whole studying from home thing to start with, because I did move further away from uni. I moved like a half-an-hour drive away rather than like a 10-minute walk, so it did mean I was going into uni less, because I wouldn't just hop over to the university library when I needed to study. I would just like go in the lounge. So that kind of gave me a little bit of transition time, I guess, to kind of wrap my head around it, get into a routine, get used to what works for me, before I had all of my before I had all of my assignment deadlines. There you go. So that was really helpful, but it definitely was still strange not having kind of the people around you. I think that's what I miss. Like, even when being in the library, you're just surrounded by people, and it is very like isolating, I guess, to study by yourself. So that was something that was really tricky for me, because even though I was originally studying from home, I would still go into uni. I would still have that kind of interaction or those people around me. So that was really strange to kind of get used to, I guess. But I think just working out what works for you and really highlighting and exaggerating those areas helped a lot, because then I didn't feel like I was in a slump, I guess, because I knew what worked and I knew how to implement those things to help me kind of like succeed and feel motivated and keep productive even when working at home. The next question I thought was so good, and it's, do you have any tips for doing uni work in a small flat? And I think the one thing about working in a small space, or just like in one room or what have you, is that it can get very stale quite quickly, because you're in the same setting, same environment, looking at the same things. And for me, that's a really big part of what helps me to study, like my environment. But I do think that if you are studying in one room or in a studio flat or something like that, think about the different ways you could study. So for example, I'm in my bedroom right now, so you would automatically think the place that I would study would be sat at the top of my bed, just like tapping away. But I could also sit like on the side looking this way. I could sit on the floor and use my bed as a table. I could lie on the floor. Just different things to help break up the day. Even if that means you do like 1 hour of studying at the top of your bed after breakfast, and then you have lunch, and then you spend 3 hours on the side of your bed, just so it still feels like almost like you have a timetable, I guess, but as well as that you're changing your environment and your setup, and that can really help refresh your mind, I think, and just give you a new sense of like you're starting again, new sense of motivation, new sense of productivity. let's go. That would really help me. I know working from home here is a little bit larger than obviously a studio flat or anything like that. It's 2 bedrooms, but I've been working in the lounge and I've been working in here and I've been working in the kitchen. I've tried to work in here a lot less because obviously it's my bedroom. I don't really want to associate it with uni work. I want this to be my escape. But yeah, I have been working in the lounge and in the kitchen and kind of swapping those 2 areas out, which has been really helpful. Also, if you have outdoor space, you could work out there. Why not? Obviously not on a day like today, but in nice weather. But yeah, so I guess that was kind of 2 tips in one, to like switch up your space and also do yourself a time schedule, just so that you kind of stay sane and you'll know what you're expecting, rather than like, I feel like if you don't set a plan, that it's almost like there's no light at the end of the tunnel because you don't know when you're allowed to stop. Do you know what I mean? And it could just drift into the evening. But by having a schedule, it's really nice to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to study for 4 hours and then I'm done at 5. Like, that feels so good to me because you can kind of count it down, make sure you're fitting in all your work in that time slot. And I feel like I'm a lot more productive than whether I would just be like spending all day doing dribs and drabs of it. So yeah, that would be another tip. So the next question is, what's the most important thing for you when studying from home? And now I chose this because it goes into the last question quite well, but it's definitely my setup. So by that I mean like not just the space I'm working in, but say I tend to work in the kitchen because we have a dining room table there. I would have the table, the chair, obviously I'd have my laptop, I'd have my notes, I'd have a pencil case, I'd have a glass of water, I'd have a cup of tea, I'd have a bowl of snacks. Like, I really made sure my little setup was good to go, just because I know that I like to drink tea as a reward for doing work, and I like to snack when I'm reading to help me like keep going through it, I guess. And I'd also have like a blanket in case I was cold, just like as much stuff as I could to make sure that I didn't have to get up and kind of remove myself from that study zone, I guess, to go and get something, but also that all of my like needs were there ready and I had everything I needed to. And I just found that super motivating, I guess, because I had all of the things that I know motivate me to work and keep me productive, which I could just grab when I wanted to, when and then. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I could just grab when I wanted to, which really helped me. And I loved having like a tick sheet next to me to like tick things off as I went, and so just having all of those things in my little space really kept me motivated and helped me study from home, because I almost made a classroom for myself, I guess. I made myself a study zone and I was in that zone. Like, I was not going to be leaving unless like I needed to pee or something. So the next question is, what is happening with your graduation? And I just wanted to touch on this because I'm still getting a lot of questions about it, and I actually just filmed a video all about it, which is actually going live today, but it's already up when you're watching this, obviously. So that's a full like debrief, I guess, all about my graduation. But just to update you, it has been postponed, but if you need more details or want to know what I was thinking about, what was going through my mind, all of those good things, go check out the last video. But yeah, it has been postponed. Don't know when it will be yet, but fingers crossed it's still going ahead. So the next question I thought was really interesting actually, and it is, are your lecturers ignoring you? Now, I'm assuming this is from someone who's suffering from this, or finding that this is a fact, that lecturers aren't being as responsive as they may want. I didn't necessarily find this, which I think was really lucky, but I think our lecturers were really aware that this was going to be a really tough time for their 3rd year students, aka us. So they were really on it with emails and very quick at responding. I actually had a lecturer like reply within like 2 minutes, and I think it was after 6 o'clock on like a Friday, so I was pretty surprised by that. But yeah, they were really on it with replying to us, which was really helpful. But I also found I didn't really message them too much. I think I sent maybe 2 or 3 emails. As I said, I only had a few assignments left, so it was quite easy to kind of get those sorted and addressed and move on to the next thing. I didn't really have too many questions about it because the questions I had already asked. But I do think if you are finding that your lecturers are slow at replying, number one, just because I always argue for the teachers here, but it's just because my mum is a teacher, they have probably got so much work going on. Think about how many students they have emailing them. Like, unfortunately, you're not their only student, so just bear that in mind. Like, allow them a couple of days to reply, I would at least. But if you do find it's getting to like 4 or 5 days and they haven't replied, send them a follow-up email. But if there is one particular case where there's a lecturer, you've emailed her 3 or 4 times, you've talked to your friends, they're experiencing the same thing too, maybe message your, like, I want to say head of year, that's kind of like a secondary school term, but like your program leader, like your course leader or something, and just bring it to their attention that you're not finding enough support from one of your lecturers. It could be that that lecturer is going through something and just hasn't reported to the staffs for someone to cover her or anything, but it could also be that she's just not pulling her weight, unfortunately. But just bringing it to someone's attention will help. Just, I know it feels bad kind of ratting someone out, I guess, but at the end of the day, it's your education, you're the one who needs that degree, so I would definitely follow up. I really don't find that scary for me. Like, I'm paying a lot of money to get my education, and I expect a certain standard from that. I mean, it's a lot of money. So just remember that and kind of do what you think feels right. Obviously give them their fair chance, enough time to respond, a follow-up email. But if you're really struggling and you're really finding that you're being left in the dark all by yourself and your lecturers aren't there for you, definitely follow up with someone. The next question I thought was really sweet and kind of sad is, are you missing your friends? And yes, I am. And I actually find that even the people that I didn't necessarily talk to a lot, I'm still missing. You know, like just the whole classroom setting. I think the weird thing about graduating, like finishing my final year in isolation, was you kind of lost the sense of camaraderie. Like before, we would all be in the library or all be in a lecture room and we'd all be working away at the same thing, working towards like the same goal. Like we all just wanted to get a really good degree at the end of it. So even if there were people in the room that you didn't necessarily get on with or you weren't really that familiar with, you still had this kind of sense of camaraderie, like you were in it together. Whereas when you're working from home, you're kind of removed from that and kind of detached from that, especially if they're people you don't talk to that often. You're not going to strike up an email conversation or anything, you know. So it was kind of difficult in that sense. I obviously kept in touch with friends over WhatsApp and things and FaceTime just to like check in with each other and help each other out. Like there were a lot of questions going around about what the hell was going on because we were all trying to figure it out. But yeah, I definitely miss like all of the people, and I think it was really strange like submitting your final assignment and stuff and not seeing your classmates again. So not be like, oh, well done for finishing, or we did it, or can you believe it, kind of thing. There wasn't any of that kind of rapport, I guess. Is that a word? I don't know, I've never used that word in my life. But there wasn't any of that, which kind of felt a bit sad. So I have been missing the people a lot, just like everyone. But I know that come graduation we'll get to do that, which will be really exciting. Obviously we don't know when that is, but I'm definitely looking forward to it. So the next question is, what's the hardest part about completing uni in isolation? And I do think it's being detached from the university itself, and by that I mean like all of the university facilities, like your lecturers. It's really important for me to have, like, I'm a people person, I guess. Like I like having people around me. I like being in a classroom setting. I like being able to talk to my lecturer like one-on-one and bounce off questions and things. So that was really difficult for me to kind of get that taken away, I guess, or like having to do that in another form where you're not obviously in contact with anyone like one-to-one or like in person. So that was really tricky for me. Yeah, just as a people person I really struggled with that. So I think that has definitely been the hardest part of it. But I am really lucky in the sense that I live with flatmates and things, so I do still have that kind of social interaction, which I think I would go crazy if I didn't. And I just found having to kind of figure out new ways to get the same kind of university resources and support and things was really tricky, and definitely something that you had to kind of transition into and get used to and kind of figure out, which obviously took some time, which was kind of annoying, especially in so close to finishing university. But I think overall it was completely doable, just something you kind of had to get used to and were kind of forced to get used to, I guess. But I know like I was very lucky in my circumstances and my situation, and it could have been a lot worse, and it's just something that I'll definitely remember moving forward, looking back on my degree. Like no one else has gone through this. So yeah, it was very interesting, but not much you can do about it. And then ending on a high note, what is the one thing you enjoy about uni being closed? Now this was a really interesting question, and I think a really good perception to have, or a good way to think about it, I guess. But I think weirdly, with the university being closed, lockdown in general, I just found I had a lot less distractions and so much more time to really focus on my work, which I found really beneficial. Like my grades actually went up since being in lockdown, and I think it is just because I had more time to research and be by myself and get my head into it and just study, which obviously paid off in the grades, which I'm so happy about. So yeah, I do miss those distractions. I miss going out, I miss having a social life, I miss going out for dinner with my friends and things. But by not having that, I was kind of given the gift of time just to get myself sorted, get in the zone and get my work done to like the highest standard possible, which I think if all of this hadn't have happened may not have been the case, because I still would have had those like daily interruptions or distractions or things that concerned me otherwise, rather than my uni work. Because obviously sometimes your uni work can seem like a bit of a drag and something you don't really want to do, and you kind of procrastinate. But when you're in this situation, you don't really have that much to procrastinate with, in all honesty. So I think that was probably the best part about the University of Greenwich being closed, which was so sad, but obviously worked out in some ways. So I think it is important to kind of look at the bright side, see the silver linings of it all, and really focus on those, especially during this kind of time, especially when it's grey and miserable outside and you're really stuck in your house. Like, I can't even go for a walk today properly, it's like chucking it down. It is good to think about the positives and just think like, my flatmates have been furloughed, so I get to spend more time with them, and we've only recently moved in, so I get to learn a lot more about them and just kind of hang out, which has been really fun, as well as like practice new hobbies and all of those things. But yeah, there are definitely good things to have come out of lockdown. But yeah, that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it and that I answered some of your questions. I do actually have another graduation video coming up soon. I'm doing a 3-part series. This is the second part, but that's coming on a little later on my channel, so make sure you subscribe to stick around for those. If you do have any more questions at all, either leave them down below or head over to Instagram and DM me over there, because I'm pretty good at replying on there. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'm currently posting 3 videos a week, so if you are finding you're bored, stuck at home and you want some more content to watch, hit the subscribe button and hopefully I'll see you very soon.